a guest, Excellency, the representative of the UN Secretary General, distinguished guests, all protocol observed, fellow Rwandans. I'm Second Counselor at the High Commission of Rwanda, and I'm honored to be the moderator during this commemoration event. Remembrance. 30 years after the genocide, Rwanda, the people of Rwanda and the High Commission, and comforted by your compassionate presence when Rwanda and the world commemorate and reflect on the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. Our program of this evening is as follows. We will proceed soon to the candle ambassadors, excellencies, the chief guests, the UN representative, the diplomats, for the candle lighting outside. Then, after the candle lighting, UN resident coordinator, His Excellency Shombi Sharp, will have a children's poem. We'll listen to the Ireland, His Excellency Mr. Kevin Kelly. And then the High Commissioner of Rwanda to India will follow with her keynote address. And we will see a short video of the illumination of the Qutb Minar on the evening of 7 April. And after that, the High Commissioner will invite our chief guest for his keynote address of today, and we let you know how this program will be followed. There will be a song. This song was played on 7 while Rwanda was commemorating this 30th anniversary of the genocide. And here we also have the time to listen to that beautiful song. Please rise, and our protocol will direct you where the candle lighting is going to take place.
Too much of light on your face, sir.
I think we are done with the activity of candlelighting. Thank you so much, Excellencies. As I said, thank you so much. Now we have a documentary on the people cutlery, on the commemoration, on the genocide. So let me tell all of you.
Is Rwanda today, a country transformed over the past 30 years. This new Rwanda has been 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, an event that shocked the world. Our story offers a warning of what can happen when political leaders preach division and hatred triumphs over humanity. But it also tells us what can be achieved when a determined people fight together for unity and reconciliation. An event that shocked the world. Our story offers a warning of what can happen when political leaders preach division and hatred triumphs over humanity. But it also tells us what can be achieved when a determined people fight together. Our journey, told by those who have traveled together as we have moved from despair to hope. Rwanda first existed in 1994, and yet our story starts long before this. Before colonialism, Rwandans had a rich culture, one language, and the people were united around their own organic form of governance. This all changed when colonial powers chose to control Rwandans by ethnicity, creating division and conflict where none had existed previously. This division grew into hatred and violence, culminating in the genocide against the Tutsi, where over 1 million people were murdered in 100 days.
zaba zifite ubuhiri, zifite imipanga mu isoko, zibyina nka ukanda burende, bahiga abatutsi mbese mu buryo bukomeye.
Maze kubona bikomeye, abantu batwika, abantu barya inka, abantu batemagurana, za bariyeri bazishyizeho, yewe n'abana na madamu tujya kwa databukwe. Bari bafite imbaraga nyinshi. Abo bana rero bahamaze iminsi mike, hanyuma musaza wa madamu se wabo ufite imwe na se n'abandi b'abavandimwe babo nibo bafashe iya mbere, nta wundi wivanzemo, babajyana muri Nyabarongo, barabaheka baragenda babata muri Nyabarongo, barangije barataha.
Muri Genocide 94 banyica imiryango yanjye mu bana 9 nabyaye, hasigayemo utwana 2. Abana ba Mariya 2 n'umwana wa Mariya, aho bose badusanze kuri bariyeri, twe turagera kubica. Abagabo bacu babazamuye mu ngo bababwira ngo tugende tujye kwirinda, ariko bo bazi ikigiye kuvamo. Bahera ku mugabo wanjye kuko bari kuri liste, bahita bamutsinda aho ngaho haruguru y'urugo gatoya, barabarashe, bamurashiye amasasu, umwe aravuga ngo n'uyusha mbaye hanuyo.
This genocide was long planned by the government of the time, who used education and the media to divide Rwandans, creating the conditions for the genocide to happen. The preparation of the genocide and of the 100 days of killings happened in full view of the world, who stood by, watched, and did nothing. No one came to Rwanda's rescue. The killings were only stopped when the Rwanda Patriotic Front overthrew the genocidal government. From that moment, Rwandans began the long, hard road to recovery, healing, and reconciliation.
Mu mwaka wa 2004 nibwo nafashe icyemezo cyo gusaba imbabazi Mariya. Mfati umwanzuro, numvaga mvuga nti se wenda yaba ntari namusanzeyo kuko numvaga mfite ubwoba nkongera nkavuga ati ubundi amaherezo yazaba yahe. Ngize amahirwe rero ubwo nuvuga ngo Mariya asanze ariyo, nibwo naramubwiye nti uko biri kose urabizi njye ndi mu bantu nyine bakwiciye, ariko noneho ndagira ngo umpe imbabazi. Byagiye bigenda gahoro, uko dusabana, uko duhura, uko tuvugana, uko twigishwa, hacamo inyigisho nyinshi cyane, ntabwo byari byoroshye. Ahantu neza nyemereye neza ko imbabazi yazimpaye, narangiye ngira ku isantere ahantu mbonye Mariya, naramuhamagaye turasangira, mbona aremeye turasangira. Muri uwo munsi n'umunsi ariko nafunguwe, n'umunsi ariko mvuye muri gereza.
To heal the wounds of a nation where neighbors killed neighbors, and even some family members turned on each other, the new Rwanda had to find a way to deliver justice for the victims, which could manage the scale of the crimes, and could also heal the torn social fabric of our society. So, we turned to our history for the answer. We set up Gacaca tribunals, a traditional form of community justice where citizens elected inyangamugayo, men and women of integrity in their communities, who heard almost 2 million genocide cases. This not only ensured that justice was delivered, but also established the truth of the killings. Reconciliation could begin at last.
Gacaca zimaze kugeramo abaturage tugakorana, bariya bafunguye bakaza bagashinjanya, kanaka uwe kanaka twajyanye mu gitero, we kanaka twajyanye mu gitero, ngo kuko abakoze jenoside, ngo kuko bagaragaye.
Abenshi rero muri Gacaca byatumye bamenya uko ababo bishwe, barihangana barabyakira, bamenya n'aho bajugunywe.
We asked that the genocide survivors make huge sacrifices by putting aside their desire for retribution in favor of forgiveness and reconciliation. And we asked all Rwandans to leave the ethnic divisions in the past and embrace a future of Ndumunya Rwanda, where we are all Rwandan.
Nabaga muri CNLD, naje mfite ipeti rya General de Brigade. Kuyo dufata icyemezo tukava muri CNLD tukaza mu Rwanda, nuko twari tumaze kumenya neza ko leta y'u Rwanda ifite gahunda nziza yo kunga Abanyarwanda, ikangurira Abanyarwanda aho bari hose batabuke mu mahoro, kandi waza ikakwakira neza umunyarwanda, ugatura aho ushaka utuje utekanye nta kibazo gihari. Muri RDF igihe mazemo nabonye nta vangura ribamo, umuntu akora akazi ashinzwe nta kindi.
Rwanda is still a work in progress. It is up to the next generations to learn the true story of our past, to protect against genocide, denial, and hate, and keep the memory and the lessons of our history alive.
En fait, le négationnisme est en pleine expansion sur Internet, sur les réseaux sociaux, puis sur Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Le discours n'a pas changé. Certaines personnes vont par exemple prétendre que le génocide n'a pas été planifié, mais que les gens se sont mis en colère et ont commencé à tuer. Il faut qu'on soit plus nombreux à protéger la vérité, à protéger l'histoire du génocide contre les Tutsi sur ces plateformes-là.
We have made progress across every sector, creating a secure and ambitious country which offers opportunity and hope to all Rwandans.
Byahindutse ni byinshi nyuma ya jenoside yakorewe Abatutsi. Umwana ariko akabona buruse atitawe ngo n'ukwande. Ndi umukobwa ukora mu bijyanye n'ubuvuzi, ndetse nkaba ndi no muri siporo, kandi byose nkabikora neza. Rero umwana w'umukobwa icyo namubwira ni uko turashoboye muri rusange, ibyo twajyamo byose dushoboye kubikora neza, ndetse turanahagarariwe hirya no hino kugeza ku mudugudu, turahagarariwe n'ijwi ryacu rishobora kumvikana.
For our friends around the world, we thank you for continuing to stand with us and ask you to share Rwanda's story and what we've learned about division and reconciliation at a time when the world seems increasingly more fractured. Rwanda's experience is one of unimaginable loss, but it is also the story of a people determined, of resilience, of sacrifice, and of rebirth. Rwanda today is proof that out of the depths of despair can come great hope.
Thank you so much. I don't need to add more. The movie is self-explanatory. Yeah, this is Rwanda from the start, from 30 years ago up to now. And we are very grateful because you have not been alone. We have been with you all the time, like today. Now, may I invite Excellency Shombi Sharp for his keynote address of today.
On behalf of the United Nations team in India, and as representative of the United Nations Secretary General in India, I'm very honored and privileged to be joining you here on such a solemn and important occasion, and to begin wishing you Namaste, Muraho. Welcome. I wish to acknowledge first and foremost Her Excellency Jacqueline Mukangira, High Commissioner of Rwanda to India, Chief Guest Mr. Savala Naik Mude, Additional Secretary from the Ministry of External Affairs, my colleague Ambassador of Ireland to India, His Excellency Kevin Kelly, and all of the members of the diplomatic community, representatives of government, distinguished guests of all sorts, and especially the wonderful children, young people who will be gracing us in a bit with their amazing songs of joy and of hope. As we gather to commemorate the 30th anniversary of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda, it is absolutely imperative that we embrace the theme, remember, unite, renew. Remembering this dark chapter in human history is both an act of honoring the victims and a solemn reminder of our collective responsibility to prevent such atrocities from ever happening again, and to embrace the courage of the survivors. We must acknowledge in this course the shortcomings and the failures of the international community, including the United Nations, during that period, and learn from the lessons of that tragic experience and build forward to a brighter future. In 2005, the UN established a dedicated outreach program to help education, to help build remembrance, precisely with the aim to prevent future acts of genocide. This year, that outreach program has organized an exhibition, including an online exhibit, that highlights the power of genocide reconciliation, the power of coming together that we have just witnessed in that a powerful film, featuring the stories of individual survivors and reminding of the deadly impact of hate speech and conflict that unfortunately remains so relevant today as war rages on in so many parts of this world. This morning, the UN Information Center and the High Commission of Rwanda co-organized a touching and powerful performance by students from schools across Delhi to commemorate and raise awareness about the genocide against the Tutsi. And dear colleagues, it is now my privilege and honor to read out to you the message of the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres on this occasion. And I quote, "On this day in 1994, and for the nearly 100 days that followed, 1 million Tutsi children, women, and men were killed by their fellow Rwandans. Families turned against families. Friends became foes, and a dark spirit of international and brutal violence engulfed a nation. We will never forget the victims of this genocide, nor will we ever forget the bravery and resilience of those who survived, whose courage and willingness to forgive remain a burst of light and hope amidst this dark chapter in human history." This year, we remind ourselves of the genocide's rancid root, hate. To those who would seek to divide us, we must deliver a clear, unequivocal, and urgent message. Never again. We can draw a straight line between the senseless slaughter of 1 million Tutsi, as well as some Hutu and others who opposed the genocide, and the decades of hate speech that preceded it, inflamed by ethnic tensions and the long shadow of colonialism. Today, around the world, the darkest impulses of humanity are being awakened once more by the voices of extremism, division, and hate. On this solemn day of remembrance, let's pledge to stand as one against all forms of hatred and discrimination. Let us ensure that the acts that began on April 7, 1994 are never forgotten and never repeated anywhere. End of quote. The Secretary General will participate in an official commemorative ceremony at the United Nations headquarters in New York this Friday, along with the President of the General Assembly and other dignitaries, including Rwanda's permanent representative to the United Nations. So, ladies and gentlemen, despite the darkness of the past, there is strong hope for a brighter future. And the new Rwanda that we have just seen brings a profound example of that hope. I would also mention being the first country in the world to have a majority of female representatives in parliament, which links directly to the United Nations Security Council 1325 and gives us hope that we will not repeat. And as we are gathered here in New Delhi, I would wish also to recognize the vitally important contributions that India has and is making to international peace and security, not only as the largest contributor to UN peacekeeping since the very beginning, and the optimism that India's youth, the greatest youth generation in history, brings as we look forward. With that, I will conclude in remembering the victims, uniting against hatred, and renewing our commitment to peace and reconciliation. We can and we must pave a way together for a brighter tomorrow. Sathe to sambhav hai. Mura koze. Dhanyavad, bahut bahut dhanyavad. Thank you.
May I now call two children who are going to recite a short poem on this occasion. It will be also a reflection of what was Rwanda 30 years ago and how Rwanda is today.
Kwibuka 30, poem by Kalinda and Sine from Rwanda. Good evening, everyone. We last gathered here on this magnificent hall on 7th April 2023. We are happy to be with you again, friends of Rwanda. Our poem today is entitled, Rwanda, Rwanda, Motherland. Rwanda, Rwanda, Motherland, land of 1,000 hills. 30 years ago, thou hadst suffered the worst of genocides. Thy body had died. Thine soul never failed. Your killers buried you, not knowing you were a seed that had to grow from the soil, victorious. Rwanda, Rwanda, motherland. The international community turned a blind eye in 1994. More than 1 million Tutsi were decimated, beheaded, buried alive, eaten hearts, so much atrocities. Today, your seeds are blooming. Rwanda, Rwanda, motherland. Your sons and daughters saved you, brought you back to life. We bow and pay tribute to our soldiers, fallen and alive. We celebrate the resilience of the survivors. Respect and love to our dear President Paul Kagame. You defeated the killers, gave all to parents, families, country, for us to thrive. Rwanda, Rwanda, motherland, you look so great today, 30 years after the genocide against the Tutsi in 1994. Your cleanliness reflects clean hearts. Your greenery symbolizes rejuvenation. Thank God your past did not hold you back. May you keep growing away from the dark. Rwanda, Rwanda, motherland, may you shine endlessly. The world needs love in the human heart today more than ever. Conflicts around the globe remind us of the genocide 30 years ago in Rwanda. Human suffering should not be of news today. No to genocide, no to hate speech, yes to peace, yes to tolerance, yes to mutual acceptance. Thank you.
Thank you so much. These young faces were here last year, as they told you, and they are here now today. And Marcus and Sine, will you be here also next year? Yes. Hope so. Thank you so much. So after this wonderful poem by these children, the time now is the keynote address.
High Commissioner Mukangira, Chief Guest, Additional Secretary Mude, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Muraho. I am most honoured to have been invited by the High Commissioner to say a few words to you on this very solemn occasion. I'm particularly pleased to be invited to do so here in New Delhi, because 5 years ago, in fact, I represented the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ireland at the 25th anniversary Kwibuka event, which was hosted by President Kagame in Kigali. I've been invited here to speak because I'm a friend of Rwanda. I not only had the honour of being Ambassador of Ireland to Rwanda from 2007 to 2011, but in fact I spent just over 2 years living in Rwanda from 1997 to 1999, as the country was just starting its journey of recovery from the horrors of one of the greatest tragedies of the 20th century, the genocide against the Tutsi. So I was there just 3 years following the genocide. Just over 30 years ago, with systematic savagery, over 100 days, 1 million people were murdered in Rwanda. Merely because of their ethnicity, the lives of million men, women and children were brutally ended. The victims were from the Tutsi community. They were targeted purely because they were Tutsi. Others who spoke out or attempted to defend their families and neighbours also lost their lives during this period of blind hatred. We should never forget what happened. The world stood idly by as we watched the slaughter of 1 million people. It was a massive failure of the international community. As President of Ireland, Mary Robinson was one of the first heads of state to visit Rwanda after the genocide against the Tutsis. She arrived in September of that year, 1994. I will always remember her speaking to the cameras with tears in her eyes, saying, "It was a harrowing visit. I can never forget the scenes I saw. The smell of blood and children's shoes abandoned in churches." Since that time, former President of Ireland, Robinson, has spoken out about the failures of the United Nations and the wider international community, and the lessons that must be learned from Rwanda. President Kagame, too, this weekend in Kigali, most powerfully and passionately made the same point. Today, 30 years on, we join with the Rwandan nation and its people in remembering. We honour them in our remembrance, and we express our sympathy and solidarity with the families and the friends of the victims whose loss endures today. We salute the considerable achievements made by Rwanda in the difficult task of building national unity, while ensuring the pursuit of justice for victims and the preservation of the memory of genocide. Ladies and gentlemen, I think I was invited because I am a witness, just one witness of those remarkable achievements. I moved to Kigali in 1997 with my wife Pamela and our young daughter Maya, who was just 2 years of age at the time. We worked with an Irish Caritas NGO called Trocera, or Trocare as the Rwandans call it, which was supporting victims of the genocide with housing, education and trauma counselling. We lived in a city and a country at that time which had been literally torn apart. In Kigali at night, we would go to sleep hearing some gunfire in the hills. And in the morning, we would wake up to listen to the BBC World Service, to news reports of further murderous attacks by the same genocidaires who would cross the border from Congo in order to try to finish the horrible, inhuman enterprise they had started. As a small Irish NGO funded by the Irish government, we tried to do what we could to support the new Rwandan government in restoring peace, providing essential services and justice to people who had suffered such unimaginable horrors. My wife and I paid respect at the many genocide memorials that were located throughout the country. I remember in particular being shown around Murambi Technical School. It's a secondary school located in one of the most beautiful places on earth. It's a beautiful valley in Gikongoro. And I was shown around this school by a man who showed me the scars on his head that he had endured himself. And he pointed out to the room which contained the remains of his own family members. I saw the bodies of men, women and children, some of them the age of my own daughter Maya, lying on pallets in classroom after classroom, wearing t-shirts with Western logos and Disney characters that might have been worn by my own girl Maya. Memories like that do not fade away. But thankfully, they are accompanied now by new memories of a country which has done so much to recover itself, to heal itself, and to prosper. You can imagine my surprise to visit Rwanda 10 years later in 2007, this time as the first Irish ambassador to Rwanda. I saw with awe the changes that had taken place in just 10 years, the massive improvements in a whole range of areas, in infrastructure, in roads, in health and education. It was and is a country transformed. So today, in addition to the terrible memories, we must honour what the survivors have achieved in Rwanda, rebuilding what had been destroyed and building for themselves and future generations of Rwandans a much better future. Today, the survivors can point with justified pride to what has been achieved since 1994. Of course, for countless people, the hurt will not go away. I come from a country that has also experienced conflict, and I know that it takes many, many years for those memories to fade. But for a new generation of Rwandans who were not even born at that time, they can be rightly proud of a country that has come so far in such a short time. Today, we also extend the hand of friendship in addressing the conflict challenges that remain to be resolved in respect of the wider region. Of course, we see today on our screens violence and conflict in different parts of the world, despite the lessons that should have been learned from 30 years ago. Hate speech and violations of human rights are the seedbed of genocide. That has to be the lesson of Rwanda. It is through remembering the victims of the past and the lessons of the past that we can move beyond the past. This will be the most fitting way to remember the victims of 30 years ago and to honour the survivors. We all can and we must play our part in preventing and stopping conflict and violence. We must work individually and collectively for respect of human rights, for democracy and the rule of law. And by standing by these principles, we can be true to both the victims and the survivors. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to conclude with a beautiful saying in my own language that we have in Ireland. Erska achela awara nadini. This literally means that under the shadow and shelter of each other, people survive. Or another way of understanding it is, we are nothing without community. Today, this evening in New Delhi, we are not Irish or Indian or Rwandan. We are citizens of the same world that depends on each other for our continued survival. I thank you all for listening to me, and I wish